So last week we had actually stopped at one particular slide that told us what do you mean by acting rationally means. Okay, so just go back to that slide in order that I just put things into perspective and continuity is reached. So we were talking about acting rationally. Okay, that is what we had stopped with. Okay. When I say that I'm acting rationally, the agent abstraction called as the rational agent comes into my help in order to generate an artifact that has this ability of being able to act rationally. Okay. So the agent abstraction, the one that we are going to learn today in this week lecture or lecture contents, is something that gives us facilitate or that facilitates us to create an AI based solution for certain computational problems. Okay? So agent abstraction is what? It is a tool or a mechanism using which I can represent my problem that I'm trying to solve or computational problem that I'm trying to solve. It gives me a facility or tool to represent that problem using some sort of a solution technique. It's a way of design representation of a design. So rational agent is an abstract way of looking at the problem to uncover the details in the problem. Now, why this agent is termed as rational? Because I can think of anything in the universe that is computable as an agent. Because agent, by definition, both sleek or simple. Anything that can perceive its environment and act on the environment is referred to as agent. So whether this perception is a thorough perception of the state of environment or whether the action that you are imparting is actually being able to manipulate the state of environment, it's not mentioned in the definition of agent. The definition of agent is very simple. That says that any entity that you are talking about, if it has two abilities, one, the ability to perceive the environment, okay, how it should perceive the environment, it's not given, okay, and that entity should have other ability which is to impart actions on the environment. There has to be some way to impart action on the environment. Now whether these actions do they manipulate the environment or not is not mentioned. Now the other thing which is not mentioned in the general definition of agent is how the agent is processing these inputs and coming up with a set of actions that it is going to impart on the environment. How this particular thing is done by the agent is not mentioned in the definition of agent. Okay, so per se, agent can be simply considered as a computer program that can be given input and that can produce an output. Simplistic way of looking at agent is this. Now, if I attach the attribution that the agent is rational, then I actually try to say something about the way the agent is perceiving the universe or the environment and the way the agent is imparting the actions on the environment. Because whenever I say or I attribute this word rational, okay, to the behavior of that particular agent, then now the agent needs to have a component which does the processing of inputs and decides what action to perform. This particular processing part of this particular thought process that is going to be there in somehow incorporated in into the agent's behavior, this is going to now give the agent the property of being rational. What do you mean by rational? The rational behavior means doing the right thing. If I have alternative actions to choose from, the agent always need to choose an action, sorry, that is going to be the most appropriate action for that agent in that scenario. Okay, so that is what the agent will do in every episode or every kind of interaction that it has with the environment. And thus, overall behavior of the agent is right behavior at all instances. Okay, so it is the agent now is not just an agent that can perceive the environment and act upon the environment, but it now has additional component associated with that maintains the quality of being rational. So I attribute an quality to the agent now the agent abstraction as well as in general to my solution that I'm giving as an AI, I attribute that quality to be referred to as rational. So every action that the agent is now going to perform is going to target to expect a maximum return, or it would incline that agent to its goal orientation. Always the actions that I have as an alternative actions, I will choose the one which takes me to my goal with a maximum rate or maximum speed or maximum delta. Okay, so I may not have reached my goal. So you can think of these problems as something like you always do in your life. Hey, you must have set certain goals कि मुझे ये particular 3 महीने में ये particular चीज सीखनी है. Say suppose you are learning some programming language, and what you do is you just don't say on day one कि मुझे ये सीखना है, and at the end of 3 months you just review मेरा सीख के हुआ या नहीं हुआ. That is not the way you go about your particular path. What you do is you start with first day. Okay? You just try to understand what all things you need to study. Then you break them down and plan a particular plan, work out a particular plan, I should say, not plan a particular plan, work out a particular plan, and plan of study that is. And then that breakdown, you will also decide कि कितने दिन में क्या क्या सीख के होना चाहिए so that I can achieve these particular tasks in 3 months, right? So you will have certain partial reviews of मुझे कितना काम करना था या कितना चीज सीखना था, whether I have actually reached up to that point or not. If I have reached up to that point, what was my speed? Was the plan, was it according to the plan, or was it faster, or was it slower? And then you may actually tweak your plan in between in order to make that plan work out and complete during that 3 months period. Because it may happen that initially your learning speed or learning curve might be very steep, so very slow, sorry, not steep, very slow. That is the amount of time that you require to learn a concept might be extra. Okay, that what you had thought earlier when you were planning. So after the end of maybe a week, when you do a review, you may understand that okay, I had thought that my learning slope will be of this sort, and that is why I would complete this particular syllabi in within 3 months. Now, with the new understanding that my speed is less, I should now increase the number of hours that I work out, or increase the number of hours that I actually apply, or invest in learning the things so that I can manage the same amount of work in that particular duration. What do you do call these things? These are things like control factors that control the way the actual goal alignment is. So you always try to figure out whether you are aligned to the goal or not. If you are aligned to the goal and faster, you may decide to relax a bit. And if you are not goal oriented and you feel like you're going slower, then you will actually think of increasing the number of hours you invest in order to study a particular goal. ये जैसे आप करते हो, the rational agent always do that kind of control always. So it will try to always, when it is trying to interact with the environment. So the important thing here to note is why it is important that agents should interact with the environment using action, and why it should choose the right actions. If you choose the right actions, there will be a right amount of change in the state of environment. And as the right amount of change is done in the state of the environment, the sensors that the agent has, through which it is trying to sense the environment state or get the information about what environment is like right now, that particular would be appropriately changed. So now this particular control loop or closed loop that we are talking about, sensors and actuators working in tandem in order to understand and manipulate the state of change. First, actions would modify the state of change, sorry, environment state, and then that change state would be reflected to agent or understood, will be understood by the agent through the percepts that it is receiving from the environment. So now when you observe the environment, you will find those changes are there, those properties are now altered. And now the model that you have for the agent in your system inside the agent is now altered. Now you can again compare कि मेरा goal achievement जो मुझे चाहिए था उस वक्त उस तक मैं पहुंचा हूँ या नहीं, and I can do the thing. Now, well said and done. This is not the only way you can go about. Many a times we might waste a lot of time in thinking, but there could be a very little time given to us in a particular scenario. Specifically, when we are talking about reflex actions that we as a human being show in many situations, many real world situations, these reflex actions don't require us to actually apply any thought process. We just want to have sensors sense the input, and then actions are ready for it. So these are things which are kind of recorded, pre-recorded. So this happens, or this is the state of environment you should quickly act upon using this action. Okay, many a times if you waste time in thinking, you might be at loss. You might be only deliberating an action, और सामने चिड़िया दाना चुग जाएगी. Okay, that kind of a scenario may occur. So many a times being rational not always means that you have a rational thought process behind your every action. A rational agent can also be thought of an agent that actually gives a reflex action. But these reflex actions are such that they are pretty much accurate in their way they are defined inside the agent's architecture. एजेंट का जो भी आर्किटेक्चर है उसमें वो इतने अच्छी तरीके से डिफाइन किए हुए हैं कि देर इज नो अदर अल्टरनेटिव बट टू गिव दैट पर्टिकुलर एक्शन फॉर दैट पर्टिकुलर सिनारियो. Okay, so don't feel that whenever I'm saying that an agent is a rational agent, I should always have the agent, okay, to have a thought process or have a logical chain of reasoning that should govern the action that the agent should do. Okay, this is not the only way to create a rational agent. Yes, this is one of the way using which I can create the rational agent. But if I am very much an expert on a particular problem, I might be able to design an agent which works like a reflex agent, which works like human reflexes. And still, that for that particular problem, the agent that I have designed would work rationally. So to show rational behavior, the actions that the agent is imparting on the environment, they should be the right actions for that particular scenario. Whether you give a thought for those actions or whether those actions are incorporated like a table in your agent's uh, condition action rule component. Okay, this condition happens, you do this. This condition happens, you do this. Okay, so it is important to understand that rational agent does the right thing given the scenario that it can learn about the environment. That's very important. So having that uh, particular property is referred to as being rational. Okay, and every rational agent, a rational entity shows this ability always. Okay, so you don't think that logical reasoning agents are the only rational agents. There are many other ways of being rational as well, and we'll be learning those ways of being rational early in our syllabus, and then we'll learn the logical way of being rational. So if you have logical chain of reasoning, always logic gives you the chain of reasoning that logic provides gives you the right thing to do in given scenario. And that's why people say that okay, the agents which are performing based on some logic, they are always rational agents. Okay, but they are not the only way to create the rational agents. Depending on complexity of situation, complexity of scenario, if it is okay to represent things about that particular problem using logical representations, be it propositional logic, be it predicate logic, be it some other kind of representation, and use knowledge base and use the reasoning process in that particular logical representation, then it's okay. The agent is logical agent. But that is not the only one way because there might be certain situations where to capture the entire information into a logical representation, A might not be possible, B might be possible, but it is too much for that problem. It is like a difficult solution for a problem. And as you know, there's something called as Occam's, I don't remember the thing, but there is some saying that says that whenever there are multiple solutions, you go for the solution which is the simplest one and effective one. okay, rather than a very complex solution, an effective solution. So it could be a complex effective solution, complex ineffective solution, simple effective solution, simple ineffective solution. So you should go for simple but effective solution. Occam's razor, that a razor or something like that is referred to. Please don't mind my pronunciation; it might be wrong. But Occam's razor, as I could share, just search so that you would also know that because it is now and then quoted by people like anything. Just search if possible. Occam's. Okay, razor ही बोलते हैं शायद उसको. Yeah. Occam's razor, also spelled as Occam's razor. Okay, so that is what Occam's razor. Generally, people quote this. This says that you should use the simplest of the solution given multiple solutions. यही उसका gist है. There are a lot of details. I guess I'm right about the word Occam. So it is OCCAM's razor. Okay, razor का मतलब क्या है? It's a theory, I guess. Okay, let it be. Then I should now go back to what I was discussing. Yeah, we're talking about this. So now what is rational agent? So this is where the discussion leads us to. So we were talking about, so if you remember, if you don't remember what is going around, we were talking about these four ways of classifying definitions of AI. We could classify them on basis of whether we are designing artifacts which are trying to replace human abilities or trying to be rational entities. Okay. So whenever I'm saying that I'm designing any artifact which is thinking rationally or acting rationally, does it mean it is not trying to mimic human beings? So it is still trying to mimic human beings, but it is trying to better human